Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to this Overview and Scrutiny Committee, meeting as the Crime and Disorder Committee this evening on Thursday the 9th of October 2025. My name is Councillor Paula Spenceley and I am the Vice Chairperson of this committee, sitting tonight as the Chairperson. Members, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Could I ask members to avoid approaching the top table, as this could create interference with the cameras and live stream. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number if you can when referring to the agenda papers, and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. So we move on to apologies for absence. Clark, do we have any apologies, please?
Yes, Chairman, thank you. Apologies been received from Councillor Morgan. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Clark. We move on to the minutes. It is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of February 2025, to be found on pages 5 to 8 of our agenda tonight, are approved as a true and accurate record. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Swindle. Is that okay? Can we agree that by consent? Thank you. So, declarations of interest. Just a reminder that you need to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interest as soon as they become aware, should the need arise during the meeting. With regards to public participation, to agenda item 5, Clark, we have no public participants at all, do we, tonight, just to confirm?
That's right, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so then we're on to item number 6, to be found on pages 9 to 32, the Maldon District Community Safety Partnership Update. And I'm going to move now to Mr. Clark. Please, if you could present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and I apologise in advance for my voice. Hopefully it will hold out for the meeting. Hopefully members had an opportunity to read the report in advance, so I won't go through it in full detail, but I will take members through page by page initially, and then show some images on the screen of some of the work we've been doing over the last quarter. So on page 1, you'll see it just on the statutory duties. And Tara, if you'd like to go on to the first slide, that's on the big screen there. When we met last in February, we hadn't agreed our priorities for the year. So we go through a strategic assessment process that will be commencing in about a month's time for the next year's time. But it gives you an idea of what priorities we're tackling in this current year. No major changes to last year. I think some of the things we have added in there is about, particularly around antisocial behaviour, is supporting our residents to solve local issues, but also under the identifying and supporting vulnerable people in communities, which have been added in, is around monitoring community tensions, which is something that's quite apparent at the moment. So there are a couple of things we've added. Apart from that, very much the same as the previous year on what we're doing. I won't, on the next page, I'm not going to say anything about crime at all, because we have Chief Inspector Ballard, who's given a police presentation, so he'll be going through the crime figures, and you've had appendix 1 in advance as well. I will quickly update on 3.14 around preventing violent extremism. That's a statutory duty for the partnership. I actually chair the Essex Prevent Delivery Group, so I do a lot of work around on the prevent agenda. One area where we do have to feed back to the Home Office on a annual basis is around our duty assurance. We do that for Essex. You'll note that we were marked as exceeding in all areas, apart from one area, which is around communications and engagement, where we were duty met. Pleased to say that we have been able to appoint an officer for Essex with some Home Office funding to do some work around communications and engagement for the next year. Likely to be 2 years, but with the Home Office you never get a two-year funding plan normally. So that's so been doing a lot of work around the Prevent agenda, and more importantly, some of the work on the national learning reviews which have been released. On 3.5, I'm not going to say anything about. Excuse me for 1 second. 3.5, I'm not going to say anything about violence and vulnerability, because my colleague to my left, Mr. James Pearson, is presenting on the work of the Violence and Vulnerability Unit later on in the report. All I can say is Maldon is safe and we're in a good place, but he'll be able to elaborate on that going forward. On 3.2, just flagging the current priorities of the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, and reminding members of the funding we receive each year from the Police Commissioner, and also highlighting the annual partnership meeting which will be hosted by the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner on the 6th of November. That's being held at West Maldon Community Centre this year. So if any members would like to come along and speak to Roger Hurst, and no doubt Mr. Ballard and myself will be there as well to talk about any community safety issues. If we could go on to the next slide now, Tara, if that's okay. I know members are usually quite interested in the TrueCam, which is something which the community engagement team do across the district. I think it's 18 parishes we work for. We've got some slides there just showing the captures which we've done in the last 3 years and the work we've been doing in this first quarter. Some of that data is actually highlighted in the report. And if we go on to the next one, you'll see some of the enforcement performance which we've been doing this year around fixed penalty notices, antisocial behaviour, and again some more around the TrueCam captures. So these can be circulated after the meeting, but I think you agree there's a lot of work being done in those particular areas. As agreed with the chair, I'm now going to show some nice images of some of the nice things we do as a partnership. So if we go on to the next slide. A lot of the work, and as you'll be aware from previous committees, I've been doing a lot of work around violence against women and girls over the last couple of years. We've been lucky to get some funding from the Police Commissioner for a variety of projects, which are highlighted in the report. This particular project is part of a project for Promenade Park. As you're aware, I think we're still waiting planning permission for the full skate park at Promenade Park, so can't move ahead with the other sort of work there. But what we have done, and we done in July this year, was an artwork project working with students from the Plume. So the initial design of this was agreed with some of the year 9 students we worked with, who are now year 11, through the Make Space for Girls consultation. They really wanted a bright and vibrant, colourful area to look out on the new skate park, and I think you'll agree that the skater girls on their skateboards and surfboards, I think we've come up with a really good solution for that. On the other side, it's a little bit more heritagey, if that's such a word, with some lovely seals which were with Maldon Prom in the background. You also see on the corner there, we've added a new CCTV camera. So that CCTV camera covers a bit of the blind spot which we had around there, but also using the new technology, you'll see that's a movable camera. But if you look in the top part of that camera, there's also a static one So that's got what's called a tandem view unit. So that static unit will look at the skate park all the time. And one of the things that the young people wanted was lighting, safety, colour. They're three of the things they come up with through the consultation. So we've made the area safer. Whilst we've done that project, we also put a couple of static units around by the entrances to the toilets, because a lot of the young people who were using the park also felt unsafe in some of the areas. So by adding CCTV to the external areas of the toilets, that's improved the safety as well. We could go on to the next slide, please, Tara. You'll see when we done the initial design, we also were lucky for the Plume to come along and help us actually paint the canvas. So on the right-hand side, you'll see there's 3 Maldon landscapes. And what we've done is we worked with a street art project chap in the fluorescent thing, Scotty, who does Scott from Brave Arts does a lot of work for us, probably for the Violence and Vulnerability Unit as well. And the other lady there, Candy Joyce, is a lady I've known for a long time, who also works on projects as well. What we've done there, we worked with, over a 2-day period, we worked with year 8, 9 and 10 students from the Plume. So they come down in batches of 16. So we could work, we only, because of health and safety, because we were using spray can artwork, etc., we only allowed to work with 8 students at a time. So they got involved and painted a lot of the flowers on these landscape pictures. And if you go on to the next slide, please, you'll see the leader come down and got involved on the Friday as well. So whilst we had 8 doing the graffiti art, the other 8 sat on the bench here, and it's really nice. They actually sketched designs of what they wanted from the skate park, which was really interesting, really. And one of the great things was one of the young ladies come up with a design which was almost what we're putting there. And I got the drawings out and sort of said, this is what we're actually doing. So it's quite nice, but they've come up with some great ideas. They wanted palm trees and everything in the area. So it's quite a nice project. So we split it into 2 groups and got involved with working with the young people. If we could go on to the next slide, please, Tara. I think at the last meeting, I told you that we were moving forward with our women's safety project for Maldon. What we'll be doing is having a district-wide women's safety charter, but part of the initial process for the training and the nudge behaviour, where we'll be encouraging people to be active bystanders, is 2 or 3 weeks ago we done the filming on location in Maldon, at Maldon, prominent Maldon areas. Most of you will know the Oak House, so we filmed in the Oak House. And what we'll be able to do, I've had a raw cut edit of the film only this week, so it needs a bit of work done on it first, but I'm really pleased with what's been produced so far. So that's a scene we done in the Oak House, and it's all about challenging behaviour and nudging people's behaviour. We're not expecting people not to do things, but if it's encouraging people to change their ways. If you go on to the next slide, please, Tara. Where we've got a couple more locations where we filmed at the leisure centre down by the prom, where we had inappropriate behaviour being challenged there. And on the right hand side, you'll see that that's filmed in the Plume Academy. So we actually had year 12 and 13, so that's the 6th form drama students, actually will be in the video. So we actually worked with about 10 drama students from the Plume Academy who will be involved in this, and what they were, the particular scene we were doing in the Plume was about controlling behaviour, and how we can challenge controlling behaviour in schools. So, and again, we're looking forward to do some more work within the schools on this sort of stuff. And finally, the last slide, excuse the picture, that's off my phone, so it's not that great. That's Burnham on Crouch skate park, where we filmed some, you can see the photographer there filming a scene at Burnham on Crouch. And again, that's other locations we filmed in the district were OC Leisure, because we wanted to do a scene in a leisure park. As we quite rightly know, we have sort of like a hidden nighttime economy in leisure parks where our population can grow by about 5,000 or 6,000 during the summer months. So trying to make sure that we also it's not just about pubs and clubs and things like that. It's also about challenge and disbehaviour in some of the leisure parks as well. And we've done a scene at Maldon Promenade as well. So I think we've got 6 really good scenes filmed across the district in various locations. Excuse me. So that's just talking a bit about some of the projects we've been doing and moving forward with. On the final page, well, not final, I've just picked up on some of the work we've been doing under current projects. So we've been doing quite a lot of community engagement this year. If anyone's been out on Promenade Park, you see we've got the corporate trailer out at the park now, so we can rock up and speak to people, but not just us. People like the fire service can also use that trailer to do community engagement. And we've refurbished the office at Riverside Park at Burnham on Crouch, so the officers can stay down there now, and if the youth service want to go and work out there as well, they can. So we've got that's been refurbished as well. Moving on to Hearth Space project, which is another project for Burnham on Crouch, where we've got some rural prosperity fund where we're going to do something similar to the Make Space for Girls project. Also, I bid for some funding for the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner Safer Streets Fund, where we got about £20,000 from the Police Commissioner as well. So in terms of capital funding to do a project there, we've got over £40,000 to do a project at Riverside Park. So what I'll be doing is a sort of like a light touch consultation at working with Ormiston and local people, because it needs to be the local people who design that. And what we're hoping is we'll be able to extend these sort of projects out into parishes moving forward. When we're going for partnership money, we have to look at things like antisocial behaviour stats and things like that, and a need for something in an area. And Promenade Park and Riverside Park certainly tick that box, but I'm worried there's also a number in areas in the parishes where I think schemes like this would really benefit as well. I haven't listed everything we've done around community engagement, because there's been a bit of everything. We've done falls prevention at Haybridge, things like slipper swap events and seated exercises. The safe and well visits, where we've worked with the fire service. We've been to Southminster, Tollsbury and Burnham on Crouch this year. And on the link for the Make Space for Girls, you'll see the press link which we had talking about that particular project there. I won't go into too much more detail because we've got 2 other very experienced and knowledgeable people on the agenda who are going to pick up on policing and violence and vulnerability. But my voice is nearly gone, Chair, so I'll stop at this stage and if that's okay.
Of course, thank you very much, Mr. Clark. Okay, members, so the recommendation for this is that we review and comment on the current progress of the initiatives undertaken by the Community Safety Partnership to date. I don't think, Tara, you need me to take that as a formal vote at all, do you?
No, Chairman.
That's fine, good. Just wanted to double check that. Okay, so I'll open up the floor to any questions or debate. I've got Councillor Bell first.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say thank you, obviously I'm super pleased at all the things that are coming to Burnham on Crouch. I'm really, really pleased about that. And the skate park is excellent. So will you be involving Lauren and the youth service in the consultation, Spencer?
Most certainly. Yeah, so we work very closely with Lauren at the youth service. And like I always say, it's important that these schemes are co-designed by young people. You don't want a 58-year-old bloke like me designing them. So it's important that young people get a say in the design, because then they take the ownership of it. You know, like you see at the Promenade Park where we've done the artwork there. I think that looks fantastic, and we had so many good comments about that. We'll be looking to do something similar at Burnham, but let's let the young people decide what they want first.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Any other comments at all? Councillor Fittock.
Thank you. It's a very good report, as always. I just have a sort of question on moving forward, really, because obviously we're embarking on a local development plan, or trying to, outside the respective developments coming forward. But there's likely to be considerable growth across the Dengie and the villages to facilitate that. So at the moment, we're very much focused on, quite rightly, the major concentrations such as Burnham and Maldon. But we could have 3,000 to 4,000 houses built across the rural area. I'm just wondering how you're going to take that forward over a much more diverse area, or if you've got any thoughts of how you're going to do that.
Yeah, by all means. I mean, if we can include it in our planning design statement, that would be great. You know, so moving forward with new projects like that, I really encourage it. You know, it'd be great if we could, rather than looking to design out crime, let's do it in an early stage when places are built. You know, and let's not do the default thing like we normally do. I mean, from the work I've done over the last couple of years, you can put in skate parks, you can put in Muga style pitches and things like that, but it's make sure we've got something for everyone. You know, we tend to design parks, and we design a park for under 12s to play in. We need to have something for young, not just young girls, you know, young girls, gender diverse people who don't want to play football and don't want to skateboard. So making sure we've got something for everyone. So I think that's important. I think it's important that we get that in at the planning stage.
Come back, Councillor Fittock.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say, so presumably that would be moving away from the old model of Leap and Neep that we've got type thing, where we used to have children's play equipment and that, which we've got to then presumably put into some kind of plan policy, I'd imagine, to actually do that, because at the moment there isn't anything.
Yeah.
We probably need to take that away to officers and say, well, with the developments that are coming forward, how are we going to think forward as opposed to just do what we've done in the past, which might now be out of date. Thank you.
Yes, I do think that's a very good idea, actually, and that's something that we should have at planning policy, is some input from the Community Safety Partnership and the police, definitely. Do we have anybody else who wants to comment before I comment? I'd rather nobody. Okay, so I had a couple of comments, actually, Mr. Clark. One was that I think it's great that you're doing that work with schools, because I think you make an impression on young people from a really early stage, and I think that that's really helpful and gets some buy-in into the community a lot more. With regards, and I know I spoke to you about this earlier on when we were preparing for this meeting, but with Haybridge there is definitely a need there, as it's now actually bigger than Burnham. So although we haven't got big parks, it is also a very deprived area with some antisocial behaviour issues. So I think one of the problems we have there is that the park spaces there are owned by the parish and not by the district council, and obviously that would be an awful lot of money for a parish to find to do anything like that. So I know you've been speaking to the parish at Haybridge, so I just wanted to, I know other members have contacted you about this as well, not me, other members. So I just wanted to make sure that we'd sort of recorded that you are looking to work on that, which is good. Okay, so thank you very much. That was all really positive. I'm going to move now on to item 7, which is our police performance update. We've got a verbal report from Chief Inspector Paul Ballard, who's very kindly with us this evening. So I wonder if you could present your report for us, please.
Thank you, Chair. There should be a there it is. There's the presentation. Thank you, whoever is in control of that. I will advise you when I move on to the next slide. So, good evening, everybody. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So, as introduced, thank you very much, Chair. My name is Paul Ballard. I'm the District Commander for Essex Police for the Maldon and Chelmsford districts. If you could move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I appreciate that some members will have already had this information, but just for clarity, I'll provide it in regards to just sort of a general overview around local policing for the Maldon district. So as you'll see there, that myself at the top there is the District Commander for Chelmsford and Maldon, and then a bit of an overview around the local policing teams that work the 24-hour incident response for Essex Police are based both at the Maldon District Council offices here and at Chelmsford Police Station. The neighbourhood policing teams are based both at the Chelmsford City Council hub, working alongside Spencer and the team there in the Community Safety Partnership. But similarly, Maldon, for the last 3 or so years, has had its own neighbourhood town centre team, which is based also at the community offices, the council offices here at Maldon, and they work alongside the Community Safety Partnership and other partners in the shared hub here, which is, I think it's been about a year, there or thereabouts. So yes, so that's going really well. In general terms, obviously from a local policing perspective, our main priorities, we work towards the priorities, the shared priorities of the Community Safety Partnership, our Chief Constable's force plan, the PFCC's police and crime plan. Next slide, please. Just a little bit more insight in regards to the neighbourhood policing team for the area. So the neighbourhood policing team is managed by an inspector, and that is Emily Holmes. Some of you remember Sam Girdleston. He's no longer the neighbourhood policing team inspector, and Emily has taken over that post. There are 2 neighbourhood policing sergeants based at the Chelmsford hub, and they comprise of 2 shifts that they supervise of 11 constables on each shift and 3 PCSOs. The Chelmsford Town Centre team based at the hub is 1 sergeant, 8 constables and 3 PCSOs, and then the Maldon Town Centre team, which is based here, is supervised by Matt Dolby as the sergeant and has 7 constables and 1 PCSO. In support of those, both districts have a shared 2 community safety engagement officers and then 3 children and young persons officers for both districts. Next slide, please. Just a bit of an overview. I appreciate it might be slightly small type, but just to give you a bit of a view around the PFCC's 6 policing priorities, which are on the left as you look at the slide, and then the Chief Constable's force plan for Essex Police on the right, with our priorities along with how we will work, and our 4 main areas of focus around victims, violence, vulnerability and visibility, which is all very much underpinned by Mr. Harrington's plan around preventing crime, responding to crime and investigating crime. Next slide, please. Just to give you, I appreciate members who've been before will have seen this. So this is part of Essex Police's public perception survey, which is done quarterly. And you'll see there that these are the Maldon specific percentages around public perception for Essex Police in Maldon over the last 6 to 7 years. As a consequence of the data, you'll see that the COVID impacted years, not just Essex Police, but policing nationally, saw some fluctuations in the perception results, with broadly speaking, the main areas increasing or decreasing, depending on the nature of them. But in broad terms, public perception of policing improved during the COVID years, impacted years, and has returned to pre-COVID levels for the most part across the general policing family, both within Essex and nationally. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then you'll see there again some further numbers in regards to where we stand as of the most recent quarter for Maldon. I'll just leave that there for slightly longer, and then I'll move on to the next slide. Thank you. If you could just move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So there's a more in-depth summary, and I appreciate you may have been provided crime and antisocial behaviour incident reporting data as an appendix, but just to give you a brief overview from a Maldon district's perspective. So over a 12-month period to August this year, Maldon district has seen a reduction of volume total crimes of 280, which brought the total to 3,070. And just to give you the brief overview, that the Maldon district, from a volume crime perspective, had the lowest recorded crime in Essex. Over the past 12 months, there has also been a decrease in the number of antisocial behaviour incidents reported to Essex Police within the Maldon district, and that has reduced by approximately 10% in the last 12 months. Similarly, residential burglary dwellings have seen a reduction on in the last 12 months of 51%, with say just over half in of numbers in regards to the number of burglaries that we've had reported. And in regards to vehicle crime, there's also been a reduction of just over 50% in regards to theft from motor vehicles, and then overall there's been a 20% reduction in regards to theft of motor vehicle offences, which is obviously very positive, but with work to continue. Next slide, please. I appreciate this is a little bit of a busy slide, so I apologise in advance. I accept that you've probably got the crime data as an appendix. You'll see there that in broad terms, the crime and antisocial behaviour for Maldon in the last 12 months is overwhelmingly green, which is positive, as that represents a reduction, but there have been some offence types that have seen an increase. You'll see, with the exception of residential non-dwelling burglary, the increases are broadly aligned with some of the increases that we've seen as an Essex County force level, but again, positive in regards to the number of reductions that we've seen. And I'll obviously take questions at the end if there's any specific ones that people might have around specific crime types. Next slide, please. And just to give a bit of an overview over the next few slides, appreciate there's a lot of writing on there, so that may or may not be visible, just around some of the things that the teams have been doing locally within the Maldon district, and it highlights some good work that's been done in regards to our community tackling of issues in regards to areas in Tolleshunt Knights, Maldon High Street, Southminster, working with local businesses, working with the local community and helping residents to stay informed around fraud and scams. Similarly, with the support of the Tri-Service Officer, we've done a lot of high visibility patrols and events in various different parts of the district around keeping people's property and their belongings safe. And then, along with our colleagues in the Community Safety Partnership, our Community Safety Engagement Officers have been to the Leisure Centre in Maldon in May and provided a lot of advice around not just policing safety and crime prevention, but also around fire safety, mental health and physical health in support of a safer and healthier community. And then lastly, just to give you a bit of an overview, the Maldon Town team recently secured a 5-year criminal behaviour order against an individual from Southminster who was causing a persistent issue around harassment in regards to his neighbours. Next slide, please. Obviously, an issue that's particularly pertinent in the Maldon district around speeding, and I'm conscious that Spencer's already given some of the his team's results in regards to that. But just to highlight the fact that my team here work very closely hand in hand with the community safety team in regards to the speed enforcement, and we generally on many occasions do joint deployments. And you'll see there's some examples of some of the areas that we go to. I don't think I could fit on this slide, or even 4 or 5 slides, the different areas that we've attended in regards to tackling speeding. But I want to just point to one of specific of interest, and that's the first point there, where we worked alongside both colleagues from the Safer Essex Roads Partnership, but also Haybridge Primary School, to address concerns around speeding in the area there, whereby the Year 5 students are actually with us, and it was quite impactful to have them speaking to the drivers that were speeding, these young people, and it was quite frank, some of the conversations they were having with our drivers, and actually it left them with very little excuse. So that was really, really positive, and some really good engagement with our young members of the community. Next slide, please. Again, just a bit of an overview around some of the engagement that we've been doing. So from the 1st of April this year to the end of August, there's been a total of 119 community engagement events undertaken in the Maldon district, and obviously those will continue. We've done bike marking events in Burnham, and we've also had officers and staff members visiting schools, youth clubs, nurseries across the district in order to sort of assist and support them around making good choices, good decisions, and building trust between the young people and Essex Police and other agencies. As it says at the bottom there, we've also partnered with Heybridge Council to assist in the launch of the Dementia Together engagement and support people living with dementia. So that's something that we're working alongside our colleagues, and we regularly attend the DCAF, which is the Dementia CAF and Support Group within the district. Next slide, please. Just some facts and figures that have been provided by colleagues of ours in the Rural Engagement Team. So for those of you that aren't aware, the Rural Engagement Team are not based in the Maldon district. They're based centrally within Essex, and they cover the whole county. However, they do specialise in rural engagement, rural crime, and as you'll see there, the managing of unauthorised encampments as well as other matters that are pertinent to the rural community. They do operate 7 days a week, and in the last 12 months to the end of last month, they have managed 83 unauthorised encampments within Essex. One of those was in the Maldon district. They've received and dealt with 203 reports of hare coursing, with 23 of those being within the Maldon districts. And then they've highlighted Essex Police has had 212 reports of fly tipping, with 4 of those being in the Maldon district. But they do add the note that the majority of fly tipping reports are reported to local authorities as the lead agency. So just to give an overview of what they've done, but obviously we're not necessarily the lead agency in regards to fly tipping. Next slide, please. And then just to give you a little bit more of an overview around some of the work that the team here have been doing around disrupting organised crime and crime groups. And there's some really good examples there around some warrants, proactive warrants that have been undertaken, whereby drugs have been located, as well as other proceeds of crime that have been seized. And then with the last example that's given, a male that was charged with 27 months in prison, having been subject to a proactive police interaction, and was charged and convicted of drug supply in the area. So some really good work from the teams there. Next slide, please. Right, thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Chief Inspector Ballard, for that report. Members, I'm going to open the floor to questions and comments. Does anybody? Got Councillor Bell first.
Thank you, Chief Inspector. Some good results, and particularly good results I note around drug crime. I want to talk a little bit about non-crime, though, specifically non-crime hate incidents. Now, I understand that the rate of recorded non-crime hate incidents in Essex in 2023 was 21.5 per 100 officers, which is 3 times that of the Met, 4 times that of Greater Manchester, and 10 times that of West Yorkshire. I'm just wondering how we can justify spending this much police time on non-crime when actual crime clear-up rates aren't necessarily that great. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for the question, Councillor, and for the statistics. They always help to provide the context. So the 2 points that I'll raise are that Essex Police has been graded consistently outstanding by the HMICFRS, who are the body that obviously inspects policing within the UK, in regards to its recording of crime. And the accuracy of which it records crime. There are strict guidelines in regards to the reporting and recording, including timeframes around crime and non-crimes. So I would suggest not to say that that's the sole reason, but I believe that will be a participant reason in why the level of reporting is higher. The other thing I would say is that non-crimes are recordable as part of a government direction. It's not Essex Police that decides what should or shouldn't be recorded as a non-crime or a crime. Obviously that's laid out in legislation and obviously the government directions around that. And similarly, an incident that may be recorded as a non-crime hate incident isn't a crime, and it isn't necessarily subject to the same investigation that a crime would be. So whilst I accept fully the statistics that you've provided around the number that we've recorded, that number wouldn't then necessarily direct towards a police investigation or a police officer conducting an investigation as a result of that report. It may just be that that report is recorded. The government's direction around non-crime hate incidents is that there is a record of what tensions there may be within a local community or residential area, an accurate recording of that, both at a local, a county and at a national level, so that the government and various police forces can have an idea about whether or not there is any tensions that are becoming apparent that they weren't aware of, and they wouldn't be aware of because we wouldn't normally record them because they're not crimes. So that's why that was brought in. So I 100% understand the point. But just to reassure, that level of recording of non-crime hate incidents wouldn't necessarily facilitate and result in an increased level of investigation of those.
Okay. Would you like to come back?
I could just come
Yeah, of
back. Yeah,
course.
thank you very much for that. I am aware of Miller versus the College of Policing as far as recording goes. The biggest concern, of course, is that people are finding they've got these things recorded against their name and they don't know about it. And for people such as me, for example, I have to have an enhanced DBS check for my job. You know, in the back of my head, do I need to be worrying because I might have said something on Facebook that some people don't necessarily agree with? That is a concern, that people are having these things recorded and not being told about them. Can you reassure me at all about that, Chief Inspector, please?
I can. So without going into specific details around enhanced DBS checks, just because you have potentially a non-crime hate incident where you are a recorded person on it, wouldn't necessarily mean that that would show up on an enhanced DBS check. And secondly, Essex Police last summer, along with other police forces on the back of government requests, reviewed our hate crime non-crime hate incident recording processes, and we no longer record individuals as suspects or victims. We record them as involved parties, and as a result of that, for example, if we was to have a non-crime hate incident reported where I was the person that was meant to have said something I shouldn't have said, but Essex Police recorded it, it's not a crime, so we haven't investigated it, I wouldn't be recorded as a suspect, I would be recorded as an involved party.
Thank you, that's very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll move on now to Councillor Haywood.
Right, I've got a couple of questions, but I'll just do one. I'll leave one to someone else and come back to mine if you want to do one at a time. First one, obviously, yes, the report is lovely and it's great to see the crime has come down within the Maldon district. But obviously, it's the reason why the crime has come down. It's very easy to say there's no crime going on in the Maldon. Do you think it is because things have gone down, or is it just people are not reporting it? Or is there a reason that you feel that we've got maybe more police visibility or something like that that's actually making our crime report a lot better?
Thank you, Councillor. It's a very informed question. I don't think there's any one answer. I think that it's too complex an issue, crime and antisocial behaviour in general, to say that one factor is the deciding factor around it. I think we've got to be conscious of the fact that crime nationally has been falling for a number of years. Crime within Essex has been falling for a number of years, and crime within Maldon has been falling for a couple of years as well. So I think there is a trend generally in regards to recorded crime from the police figures around it reducing. I also think as well that the work that the police do in company with our other strategic partners, like Spencer's team, and our colleagues in the serious violence unit, I'm using that example because obviously they're here, he's having that impact because as the police, we can't solve every issue. Some of our community issues are actually better solved to the benefit of the community by our partners in local council, local government, or our strategic partners. So we work really closely with our colleagues to ensure that we get the right outcome. My view is, whilst there's always going to be a degree of underreporting, we have to accept that. You know, we live in a real world where we do have to accept that from a police point of view, there are going to be times where things aren't reported, but that's always going to have been the case. I don't think that there's been an increase in apathy, and I'm very conscious of the fact that when crime figures are raised in regards to their accuracy or whether they've gone up or gone down, when they go up, they're always accurate. But when they go down, there's always a question around whether or not we're getting them reported. So I do always believe, even when the crime is shown as going up, I do believe that there's always going to be an element, not just in Maldon, but in Chelmsford and Essex and nationally, where there's going to be some degree of underreporting. I don't think that underreporting has become more prevalent. I just think that there has been less crime in Maldon District in the last 12 months, taking into account that there will be some degree of underreporting.
Yes, you come back with your second question. You come back with your
All right,
second
I'll
question.
come back to
Councillor.
this. This has been asked by someone else, actually. They've asked me to ask the question, so a bit of a meaty one for you. So here we go. Vision Zero, this is what we're talking about at the moment. So how does this have cross-level cooperation with other authorities with responsibility? So this is an example of obviously reducing speed limits in road communities to reduce accidents. Obviously, we are having a lot more accidents, especially in rural areas, and things are going on. So we just want to know what is happening to obviously help us out in the rural communities. We've had quite a few fatals more recently, which has been absolutely, it's terrible, and we can blame all the other reasons of why we have them. Like we always go, it's the driving, it's the drinks, it's the drugs, and everything like that. That's not always the case. It is just the speed limit is too high for our roads. You know, we are lacking on certain things. We're lacking on street lighting, pavements, and all this sort of thing. So what are we doing about it from there? Thank you.
Thank you. And you're absolutely right, Councillor. And I think it's really important to note that Maldon does have its own unique challenges. And one of those is road safety. And it's an issue that's a particular concern, I'm sure, for residents and community members, drivers, and for Essex Police and partners as well. I think the key thing for me is that the police, we are one part of a larger machine in order to try and assist in resolving this and reducing the number of serious or fatal road collisions in Maldon and across Essex. And the PFCC and the Chief Constable have set a clear direction around what they hope to achieve around it, which is the Vision Zero. But I can assure you, Councillor, that Essex Police, alongside other strategic and relevant partners, work alongside each other as part of the Safer Essex Roads Partnership. And actually the whole purpose of that partnership is to bring all of those partners together so they're not working in isolation. So what you've not got is an issue with, like you say, the particular road layout of a road, or that there is actually overgrown bushes or foliage or trees or anything like that's causing a challenge, blocked drains, all these sort of factors that can affect the road conditions, lighting, like you suggested, or whether it's an issue that's predominantly more enforcement based around speeding, and actually that we would be the lead agency. So rather than the various different agencies that have all got responsibility for that, working in isolation, that partnership brings them all together so they can discuss and challenge each other to resolve, as part of that partnership, those issues. Now, it is going to be a journey, I have to be honest. It's not something, unfortunately, that's going to be resolvable overnight. I wish it was. And if it was, I'd probably be very rich and not working within the police if I had the answer to how we can resolve that issue. But what I can say is that it is something that everyone from within a policing perspective and all of our strategic and local partners are working really hard to try and work within that partnership to reduce the instances of serious or fatal road collisions in Maldon.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I come, are you okay? Did you want to come back at all quickly?
See, yeah, just thank you for that. Obviously, I'm just obviously we're really concerned out in the rural, basically because we have had more fatalities even this last year than we've had in the past. So it's actually getting a lot worse. So we need to sort something out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Before I come to the other councillors who are waiting, I can see that you actually put a little message up, popped a message on the chat there, Mr. Clark. I wonder if you could.
Yes, Chair. At Safer Essex, about a few weeks ago, they announced that there is going to be a funding pot from the Safer Essex Roads Partnership where districts can bid for funding. So it's something we are considering doing. We have to work with our local partners to see what the best thing is, whether it's a campaign or whether it's looking at average speed cameras or something like that. So it's something we are looking at, and we'll be putting the funding bidding in due course.
Definitely, it's definitely worth, I think, joining up with us over that and over the parishes, certainly. With the parishes, rather. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Clark. Okay, I'm going to move on quickly. I'll take you down, Councillor Stevens, to Councillor Lay first.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation, Chief Inspector. It's very good. Just a couple of points, really. I'd like to pass on our thanks, our thanks, and certainly the Town Council's thanks to Sergeant Dalby and the team here in Maldon. They're very good communication and attend quite regularly the town council meetings. So that interaction has been very good as the town grows with different things and different problems that we're experiencing that have been touched on by my colleagues around speeding and antisocial behaviour around the town. So if you can pass that on, that'd be very much appreciated. He gives up sometimes his days off to come and see us, so it's really appreciated. The point is, just the question is, in July, the counter downstairs closed, and then there was a change in policing to using things like telephone links to Chelmsford and more visibility of the officers here. How has that been? I know it's a short sample size, but yeah, how has that been? Thank you.
Thank you for their comments in regards to Sergeant Dolby and the team, and I will pass those back on to him. Thank you very much, Councillor. In relation to the front office, Essex Police has had to make some challenging decisions around funding. Those challenges will probably continue, like other public services and emergency services, unfortunately, moving forward. One of those was the review and closure of a number of front offices within Essex, Maldon being one of them. What I would say, and I actually, before I came up, I was having a conversation with some of my officers that are downstairs about the front office, and what they've said is that they haven't seen a significant issue or an impact, because whilst the front office is closed, they're still downstairs. Obviously, there might be out an incident, but broadly speaking, there's generally someone in. And if someone was to attend the council offices to speak to Essex Police or Essex Police officers, what the phone does, it will connect to our control room, and they will then ask the officers to go outside, or invariably what we sometimes get is we get some people come up and they sort of knock on the door and we go out. So broadly speaking, we haven't seen any significant issues, and we certainly haven't had any concerning feedback around the closure of the Maldon front office to date. But as you say, it is a small sample period of only a few months, but at the moment there doesn't appear to have been any significant issue.
Thank you very much. If we could move on now to Councillor Fitter. I can just about see him over there. But
Thank you, Chief, for the report. On the matter that Councillor Hayward raised in terms of the number of incidents we're getting, I think perhaps there is a bit of a conflict here between the Vision Zero objective and how highways measure incidents. My understanding is that if there's an incident, it isn't because of actual road safety, it's not regarded as an incident in terms of road safety. So that the incident we had at Hawthorne about a week or so back, wouldn't be regarded as a highway safety issue because it's a drink driving issue, which obviously creates a bit of a problem, in as much as on the one hand the residents are really quite reasonably complaining that the roads are too fast and we're getting far too much traffic around some of the smaller roads. I think it's fair to say that the more people you've got in a district, the greater the probability that those types of incidents occurring in the first place. So I don't know how we tie these two loose strands together, because to me it doesn't really matter whether it's a drink driving incident or it's because the roads are unsafe. The end result is the same, isn't it? So perhaps that's something that needs to be taken up with the county council and via the Vision Zero initiative, because I don't think you can conveniently exclude them from a highway safety perspective, because I could arguably say that if it was dual carriages all the way around Maldon, then the probability of a head-on collision is much less, isn't it? So the roads are definitely a factor. Before you come back, I just had some questions on the appendix that you've produced with all the statistics, and it says percentage DA. What does percentage DA mean?
I'll answer that one first, if that's okay, because it's A, fresh in my head, and B, it's a relatively short answer you'll be pleased to know. So percentage DA is the percentage of those recorded offences that were domestic abuse related. So you'll see that for the domestic abuse section, it's all 100%.
Okay.
All the other crime types will have a percentage that are domestic abuse related.
Okay. Can I just come back to the Chair?
Yes.
When I'm reading through these reports, I can see that we've green and red. What I can't actually establish is how we compare against the county percentile. So if we were to look at rapes, for example, we've got X number of rapes in our district. How do I know whether that's good or bad per population or per household, and on some of the other data? So I'm really looking to understand where we're a standout better achiever or actually a standout worse achiever on each of these categories. Is that, perhaps I can't see it, but
You won't see it where you're looking on the appendix, councillor, but if the helpful person that's in charge of the presentation, if they wouldn't mind going back a few slides, that next one there, you will see there, councillor, that there is the district figures, then there is the per 1,000 population, and then there is the overall Essex County police force figures. So you'll see there the difference. So you'll notice that, for example, we are above average in regards to our crime reduction for all crime, as an example, because that's the top line. And we're also, if you go to the bottom line as an example, we're above average for antisocial behaviour, where against the force. What I would say is, so per 1,000 population, that's the number of crimes per 1,000 population within the district. We are the second lowest in Essex, lowest being Rochford at 45. But to put that into context, Chelmsford is 76. Places like Harlow, I think Harlow's 90 something from memory. So broadly speaking, rather than just looking like you suggest at the volume, obviously the volume's important because that's the total number, but when you're looking at the per 1,000 population and in comparison to the rest of Essex, Maldon is still in a good position from a crime perspective. Not saying it's where we want to be, we don't want any crime, but from a comparable point of view, we are. The one thing I would say that is a slight outlier, and you'll see it there, is shoplifting. Because we have seen a greater increase in Maldon. The challenge with sometimes with the Maldon data is because the numbers are so low, relatively speaking, that the percentages can seem inflated. But by same token, for shoplifting specifically, we have had some challenges in the last 12 months in regards to the increase in shoplifting, particularly on some of the more associated retail parks or shopping centres outside of the Maldon specific district. What I can say is that the Maldon Town team, Matt Dolby's team, have worked really hard, and we've actually had some really good results recently in regards to the apprehension and prosecution of people who have been serial shoplifters. So what I'm hoping for is that as we move through having taken that enforcement action and prosecuted a number of prominent repeat shoplifters in the Maldon district, that those numbers will start to normalise again for us in regards to shoplifting.
okay, it'd be useful to have that. I mean, personally, I'd like to see it on the detail of this one as well.
Oh, right. I wasn't. I didn't have any detail around the appendix. Apologies. That was.
Perhaps we can have the advance next one.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Oh, did you want me to come back to you on the first point?
Yeah.
So I can't answer in confidence around what highways do or do not define as a road safety issue or otherwise. What I can say is that you're quite correct in regards to the joining up of the various different agencies and organisations that deal with road safety. From an Essex Police perspective, obviously, it's directed from government what is a recordable accident or collision and what isn't a recordable collision, and that's what we work through. And then the various definitions of serious collision or fatal collision, obviously, as opposed to minor or non-injury. So those are the criteria that we have. What I would say is we also have contributing factors that we would record in regards to collisions, and some of those contributing factors will be the weather, the road conditions, other impairment of driver, those various different things. So all that information is collated and collected and then shared with our partners. What I can't say though with confidence, because I don't know, is what you asserted to around what the highways element of it, because I don't have an understanding of what it is that they define it as. But you're quite correct in so much as the need and requirement for all of the emergency services and the public authorities that have road safety at the core is to work together and look to resolve those issues. But again, like you suggested, it goes without saying as such that the increased number of residents will have an increased volume of traffic on the road.
Thank you, Councillor Fittick. Okay, I've got Councillor Stevens next.
Thank you, Chair. Some of my points have been raised, so I won't need to go through those, but I would like to just add to the thanks for Sergeant Dolby's attention. It's really good. Thank you very much. I won't go into the detail there, but thank you. The project where you've got children involved with challenging people's speeding, obviously, you know, you've had an outcome as in you've seen what the driver said on the day at the time, but do you yet has the speeding situation improved in that area? And was this a pilot? Are you planning, if it seems to have worked, to roll it out elsewhere? And if so, how do you decide where next? How do I get on the list, please? Thank you.
Thank you. So ourselves and our colleagues from the Community Safety Partnership do regular revisits of locations. So we'll have our locations, and that's either through community intelligence from councillors or members of the public around where there's issues, or similarly from data that we have or colleagues have around speeding. So those areas we do revisit. From my understanding with the team, the Haybridge primary school was I wouldn't say a pilot, but it was just a test of concept. From speaking to the officers and staff that were involved in it, they said it was impactful. Obviously, we wouldn't utilise the children in so much as anyone we were looking to take enforcement action with. So if we were looking to take enforcement action, we wouldn't forego that for a conversation with a child that's supporting us on the day. We're talking about the people that were just a little bit over, that we probably wouldn't prosecute, or we're on the limit and we're getting a little bit close that we wouldn't look to prosecute. It is something that I think would be useful to utilise and do again, because from a policing point of view, whilst enforcement is always really important, prevention is also important, and actually sometimes the best route to prevention is through a change in behaviour as opposed to a prosecution or an enforcement perspective. So I'd be really keen for my team to look to do it again. Obviously, it's reliant a little bit on the cooperation of the schools, and I think that the school had a particular issue at that time around its location, around speeding. I think that's why there was that collaboration as a proof of concept. But I'm more than happy, councillor, to take it back to the team and put the challenge to them around looking to see if it's something they can replicate.
Thank you, that would be tremendous. The ward is Tollsbury. Thank you very much. And I'd just like to also ask, with your presentations, I know it's meant to be a verbal presentation, but you have actually, somebody's gone to an enormous amount of time to put this together, and it looks like it might be wonderful, but I can't see any of it. So when you have these, would you be able to share, even if it's 5 minutes before the meeting, so that we can be looking at them on our screens and actually zoom into it properly? That would be so helpful. Thank you.
I apologise, councillor. I was unaware that it hadn't been. Apologies, that's my mistake, and I'll make sure that that's not the case next time.
Okay. If we move on to Councillor Morley, and I know Councillor Fittett wants to come back, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And
Is it James? Oh, no. It was Councillor Morley. Yes, yeah, that's what I thought. Sorry, Councillor Morley.
thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chief Inspector, for your time and your report. Just wondering how, it must be quite challenging, how do you differentiate between high risk abuse, medium and low? Is that a common sense thing, or is it a judgment of someone's experience? Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. So every domestic related incident that the officers or staff members will deal with, one of the things that they do is they go through quite a comprehensive questionnaire, a risk assessment. Some of it is absolutely based on the officer's observation, and there is going to be some qualifying impact factors like level of injury or seriousness of offence, that type of thing. But broadly speaking, it's informed by the victim and the information that they provide to us, coupled with the officer's judgment, professional judgment based on the incident that they've attended, and then they will grade it as high, medium or standard risk. So it's a little bit of both. So it's a little bit data driven, a little bit quantitative, but there's also a qualitative element where the officer can provide their justification and their judgment. So you might have someone that doesn't necessarily score high in one element of the risk assessment, but the officer's professional judgment is actually this is quite a serious case that we want to take to at a higher level. So it's a little bit of both.
Okay, thank you. If I could move to Councillor Barrell-Cook. Sorry, I missed you there.
No, that's absolutely fine, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. And I would like to echo as well, Sergeant Dalby, really, really brilliant work for incidents that have been with successful outcomes, as I say. Couple of questions. With the population growth that's going to be happening within the district, how's that going to affect policing numbers? Because the solved rates, if there's more population, if crime, we don't know what that might lead to with numbers growing. Does that change the policing numbers within the district? Will it increase as the population grows because of the visibility needed? And also, in terms of the schools, is there a way of linking with the TrueCam sites and also the, where there are key hotspots around schools? I think of one such as London Road, where speeding is such a problem. Can that be focused in engagement programmes with the schools from the police team? Thank you.
Thank you for those questions, Councillor. So the question in regards to population increase and relative policing numbers, it's a challenging question because it's not a straightforward answer, unfortunately, because Essex Police, our establishment is dictated by a number of factors: funding, central government funding through local and council tax, and other factors as well, some other external funding that we receive. Similarly, there are new and emerging trends, new and emerging crime types. I think it's safe to say that some of the pertinent crimes that we deal with now within Essex Police and nationally probably didn't exist 20 years ago. So we have to flex and change with the times. But broadly speaking, as a general rule of thumb, the number of resources allocated to a policing team and a policing district is around size of population, number of sort of reported incidents, reported crimes, because the size of a population doesn't always translate to increased crime or increased levels of crime. And sometimes you can have small areas of Essex that actually contribute quite highly in regards to in regards to crime. So there's a number of different factors, and it's also based on census data. And obviously the census doesn't get done every year, it gets done at certain periods. So it's a complex mathematical equation that's done in various different organisations, police included. But broadly speaking, it is a factor, but an increased population without necessarily an increase in crime or demand on policing wouldn't necessarily necessitate on its own an increase in resourcing, specifically for Maldon. What I would say is that if there was an increase in crime or an increase of a specific issue in Maldon, then Essex Police and myself and my colleagues who support the districts in the force would flex and move those relevant resources into the area should we require it. In relation to your second question, which escapes me at the moment, so you may have to repeat it. No, it's gone.
No, thank you. It was regarding speeding hotspots, working with the community safety engagement team.
No, thank you very much. You're absolutely right, and it would make absolute sense, like you say, if we've got a particular area that both my team and the community safety team are aware of is an issue for speeding that we've had either through data or from community concerns that have been raised by yourselves or others, and we've got a primary school, well then it would make sense to me, as it does to you, that those are the schools that we would perhaps go to and say, look, do you want to engage in this with us? It would be entirely voluntary on their perspective, but I have made a note obviously of that, and that's something that we will look to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fittick, I think you wanted to come back on something.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on the matter of speeding and speed, I mean, obviously, the fact that we've got 18 parishes subscribing to TrueCam indicates that residents are extremely concerned about it, but I recognise it's not the only problem you've got to solve. But I'm just trying to sort of clarify things. As I understand it, that it's not, the police don't set the speed limits, that's county council. So therefore, it's county council policy to have, if you like, 20-mile-an-hour zones outside school or not have 20 miles zones outside school. So I'm just really understanding this. I mean, is there, you might not be able to answer, a difference of opinion between what the police force would like to see happen and what we're actually having implemented in terms of policy? I say this was mindful of the fact that we're going to be reorganised in due course, and I'm trying to sort of understand how any kind of strategy would be put into place when you've got 3, 4 or 5 unitaries all wanting to perhaps do different things and no police and fire and crime commission in existence. So I just want to know your thoughts on that, please, really.
Thank you, Councillor. It's a difficult one. Without knowing of specific discussions that have been had, which I haven't been part of, unfortunately, I wouldn't know if there was a difference of opinion around whether or not a particular road needed to be de-restricted or it needed to be restricted to 50, 40, 30, 20. What you're absolutely right in your assertion that it's not for the police to set the speed limits, it's for us to enforce them. What I am confident about is that those discussions do take place. And if, for example, if the police had a concern around the speed limit on a particular road, we would voice that with our highways colleagues. The ultimate decision would be with them as to whether or not they amended that speed limit, and the process that they would go through to do that, I'm not completely cited on, but it's definitely something that we would have a conversation about, because I know from speaking with colleagues in roads policing and road safety within Essex Police, we quite regularly work very closely with highways around roads that we feel are unsafe or require emergency maintenance, or for example potholes. If we go to about 3 or 4 collisions in the same place, or 3 or 4 incidents where vehicles have been damaged with potholes, we will naturally tell the highways agency actually that this is an issue. So I do know those conversations take place. It's just what I can't say is for definite exactly how that process then goes from us recommending that a speed limit might want to be considered to be looked at, to highways then putting that in place. I mean, what I would say, without going down the rabbit hole of devolution and local government reorganisation, is just, please, from my perspective, because I see it from my point of view, please don't underestimate the voice that you have on behalf of the community, and actually your voices really do carry weight when it comes to, asking for agencies like myself and highways to, be held to account for why these things are happening or not happening. So just please, I know it can sometimes feel like you might not be getting where you want to get to with it. Please be persistent, because you do represent your communities, and you do, it does have an impact when you advocate on their behalf.
Thank you. So I've left to last some points I wanted to make, and one of those actually picks up a little bit on that, because I'm sure that a lot of members in here will have seen the social media comments regarding the North Heybridge Relief Road. Now, one could take a view on that. I'm no expert, so whether the roundabout should be there or it shouldn't be there is entirely not my say. But what is interesting is that Mr. Pipe, Adam Pipe, has commented that the police, he doesn't feel, are involved enough in the layout of new roads. So I take the point that I don't know how we make that happen when those plans are drawn up by highways, because my understanding is highways designed that road and there was very little police input. And similarly, we've had a planning application off of Broad Street Green Road that was one on appeal, and as part of the initial feedback on the application, the police said that they felt the speed limit at that area needed to reduce to 30 miles an hour. Now, there is attached to that application by the developer a Section 106 agreement for a pedestrian crossing, but unless that stretch of road is reduced to 30 miles an hour, that won't come about, and that 30 mile an hour decision lies in the hands of Essex Highways. So there we have a conundrum. And then while it is important that we exercise our voices, and this is one of the places we can perhaps do that, there is then the thing that you find yourself slamming your head, quite frankly, against a wall, because you're talking to different people. I've been on about the speed limit there till I've lost breath, So I think it is a difficult thing that maybe you can take back to whoever to talk about, because we do need, our voices are important, but it's very difficult to have the right channels, I find sometimes, to go down to get these things actioned. So on one hand, I'm talking to planners, on another hand, I'm talking to Essex, on another hand, I'm talking to the police, but where do they all meet up? So that's those two issues. I'm going to move to something else a little bit different. So I agree that, the Maldon Town Policing team does a fantastic job, but hey guys, you're both Maldon, and I'm going to say I'm from Heybridge. And it's great that we're now establishing a better relationship, but the communication between the Maldon Town team and Heybridge initially, I would say, was not of the very best. And I can understand that, because you're in Maldon, and Heybridge is, as it suffers from in most things, is a little bit of an outpost, but now a very big outpost. And so therefore, You know, and those things are now progressing, and the dementia work that you're doing with us is fantastic. However, and this is quite aside from the Maldon Town Policing team or anybody else, you know that I did draw to your attention an incident because in late spring, and the reason I'm bringing this up, and it's a specific incident, is because I do wonder if there's not more behind it that needs looking at, because in late spring, a car drove at some speed into Plantation Hall. And some of you will know this, a wall collapsed and we had to have building control out the next day because that was right next to a playground. We had a lot of community groups that didn't meet. And perhaps most frighteningly of all, the young caretaker on duty, young female caretaker on duty was terrified, because if you can imagine being in Plantation Hall, which many of you know at night, and suddenly a car drives not off of a road, not off of a car park, but out off of a piece of green into the building when you're alone in there, she was actually left pretty traumatised and had to have some time off of work because of that. Now, we didn't have any attendance by the police when this happened, and it has been explained, and I have seen the explanation, that it was treated as a traffic collision. My only point being there, it was nowhere near a road. So that alarms me slightly, and also that the building was safe when it wasn't safe, because building control could tell you that because they were out there the next day and we had acros or whatever they're called, I'm not very good at that stuff, propping the building up. But my point being that I wonder if when the call taker took the call, there doesn't need to be some more checks if a car's involved that is actually, you know, on a road, that there aren't other people involved, because I feel that in that particular incident, particularly with visibility in the community in mind, it would have been a really good idea, even if it had been the following day, and to speak to the young woman involved. I just think, unfortunately, it caused a little bit of, and I think Councillor Swindle will agree with me here, there were people quite unimpressed, weren't there, in the local community because the police hadn't been there. And so I thought, I don't know if maybe there needs to be a little bit of a look at when those calls are taken about actually assessing what's behind them. Do you know what I mean? Because it seemed it was kind of labelled as, you know, a non-injury traffic accident, but it was kind of a completely different thing altogether. So I just thought I'd highlight that and wonder what you think of that.
Thank you. And obviously I'm conscious that I have provided a degree of response already in regards to this. So from an Essex Police perspective, obviously we are based entirely on the information that we're provided at the time that the report is made. And I haven't taken personal review of the report and the contents of it, but I have had it reviewed by a colleague, and that was the basis of my response that was provided. So on the back of obviously the report that was made to Essex Police, all incidents that are reported to Essex Police are done on a threat, harm and risk basis in regards to either injury to individuals, potential harm being caused, apprehension of offenders, and damage to property. In relation to Essex Police in general terms, we receive approximately, or we record approximately between 1,500 and 1,700 incidents a day, with a finite degree of resource to respond to those accordingly. Not to suggest all of those incidents would require necessarily attendance. So I can understand 100% your perspective around the non-attendance point of view. From an operational policing perspective, a decision was made on the evening to say that from an operational point of view didn't require a police officer to attend. Now I understand that there's views that contrary to that in regards to how that made the community feel, and I think what I can take away from that is actually there may well be a legitimate, or there would have been a legitimate reason why, from an operational, purely operational policing perspective, there wasn't an attendance on the evening. But perhaps what I need to take away and feedback to my teams is, if we have incidents of that nature which are community impactive, we need to be more alive to those, and there might have been some additional reassurance that we may have been able to have done following it, as opposed to what actually then subsequently happened. And I certainly am not going to sit here in front of yourself, Councillor, or any of the councillors, and say we get it right every time. You know, like any organisation within the UK, within the world, there are things that we need to seek to improve and learn from. And if that's something that we do need to learn from, then we'll absolutely take that away.
Thank you. I mean, I just thought it was best to raise it because the community there was concerned about it. So now at least we have that response. So that's helpful. So thank you very much for that, Chief Inspector Ballard. I should conclude that there. It was really helpful. We move on to item 8, which is we have a report now on from the Violence and Vulnerability Unit, an update from Mr. James, and I've got to find your name, James Pearson. Sorry. Thank you very much.
No problems. Thank you very much for inviting me here this evening. It's a really great opportunity for us always to talk about the work of the Violence and Vulnerability Unit and also the Violence and Vulnerability Partnership and what we do. So as a Violence and Vulnerability Partnership, we're part of and attached to the Police Fire Crime Commissioner's Office. We're funded through the Home Office, but also through funding that we raise locally as well. The ultimate goal, working with all of our partners, is to reduce violence and using a public health approach and to prevent violence in our local communities across the whole of Essex. And working with Essex Police, working with Spencer, working with Community Safety Partnerships is one of the key goals for us, and being able to do that and use the public health approach. Every intervention, every method and every approach that we take, we ensure it's evaluated rigorously and making sure we only do what works. So we know so far that the work of the Violence and Vulnerability Partnership has seen impacts across the whole of Essex. We've heard earlier this evening, about reductions in crime and seeing that violence has reduced across Essex, and we know that. And Maldon is a safe place, and it's one of the safest places, as we heard earlier as well, within Essex. So we continue to work on that to reduce the risk of violence, but also reduce people's perceptions of the risk of violence, because that we heard earlier is about people that underreporting, but also the perception of violence can be as damaging as the actuality of it. So continuing to do that. We reach out to our communities, and we reach out across the whole of Essex, but specific areas as well, to inform people, to educate people, and to allow them to take control of how we manage and reduce violence. We use communications approaches. One of the best things that we did over the last year has been our knife crime initiative that went out across the whole of Essex. That was based around videos, and it was aimed specifically at parents. We did research. It was both academic, but it was also with young people who we knew who'd committed knife crime, and we worked with researchers, people in the youth offending service, to understand what would have made the difference to them. How could it have been, what impactful conversations would have turned them away at that point, and understand that. And we created an approach and a marketing, and that went out across the whole of Essex, that helped parents to understand, because the research that came back to us was that those impactful conversations came most from parents. It's not blaming parents, it's about giving them and empowering them to have those conversations to ensure that their children don't get involved in violence. We continue to work in schools, so we're looking to develop a targeted knife crime programme to go into schools, and we use data and hotspots to identify those that are most at risk, those where we can have the most impact, and make sure we're changing those and making the most impact of young people who may be at risk. But we also work with the Essex, so it's the County Fire and Rescue Services JETS team, so they're the Joint Education Training Team. We've worked really closely with them to help develop their knife crime programme, and they go into every school, across the whole of Essex, including within Maldon, and they produce and work with and help to understand around all forms of safety, but also around knife crime, making sure we're using the best evidence that comes from the Youth Endowment Foundation and others across the whole of the country, where models have been shown to work, so we can continue to do that. And the community grants round, so we're really clear as part of a partnership that it's not us doing to communities, it's not doing to making people feel that they're having something forced upon them, it's working with them and empowering communities. So the community grants round has just closed. That's where we give out small grants, they're targeted to areas, and there are opportunities for them to develop programmes, and we bring in alongside the infrastructure around evaluation to help that. There was a high interest from the Maldon area, there has been before, and we've also worked with other areas on the previous community grant rounds where organisations have worked with us, and we work closely with Spencer identifying those that have the most impact, and he's in part of the evaluation process as well. So just to give you an update, and it's really interesting, so we work with ECVIS, which is the Council for Voluntary Youth Services across Essex, and I think it's really important to update around the listening report that we put together. The listening report is how we work with young people and hear their voices and bring that into all of the work, and how we can share that around all of the organisations and see how we can have the most impact for young people. If we're talking about reducing and preventing violence in the future, then that's the voices that we need to listen to. So this year's report has been released. I've included in the report that I sent to Spencer a link to the Maldon area listening report, which you can click through and read. But just some of the key highlights for us was that 2,466 young people from across Maldon engaged in the process. One of the things for us that's really important, we don't just do a survey. Surveys are good, but they don't offer you. So we go and we fund youth clubs, youth centres, and you can see which ones are involved in that. And then we run through a targeted process with them in those settings so that they can feed back all of the information. And so of those 2,466 young people, they did say that knife crime remains the biggest concern in Maldon. And despite it being that low in occurrence of that happening, and that's when we talk about the perception and how we can start to tackle perceptions with young people. They may be influenced by social media. That comes across really strongly in the report. The types of and the amount of violence that they see on social media is quite high across the whole of Essex, but then it's actually across the whole of the country. But the majority of it doesn't happen within Essex. So being able to start tackling and really working around that perception is important. And so, but also the largest increase we saw this year was the 60%, was in harassment, and 60% who talked about harassment being something that they were worried about. So they included men and boys as their greatest concern within that. So this forms part of our overall strategy around violence against women and girls. Some of the stuff that we heard Spencer talking about, but also working with Essex Police around their VOG strategy, where I'm making sure that those things are all aligned to tackle that and listen to those voices. And so within the two top changes they would like to see, so there was more street lighting, which we've heard some of the progress that's been made already, but more police. And the way that we look at that is actually that's a good thing. Sometimes we hear often that young people are anti-police, or they're scared of the police, or there's very negative connotations. But the reports that we got back through this was actually the police is seen as a good sign, and it feeds into the confidence around policing. And we're working with Essex Police around understanding the confidence. Young people are asking for more police. They want to see more visible policing. That's only got to be a good thing. And how can we work with them and build those relationships with our young people, which then lead through for the rest of their lives? And we're working with Essex Police around that. So we've got the Youth Voices Conference this Saturday, where we'll be getting it across all of people across Essex, but there's an organisation from Maldon coming where we get to listen to those voices. But what's really important is they hold us to account as well. So from last year's Youth Voices Conference, we do what you said we did. So we'll be feeding back to them the changes that they asked for us to make, the changes who we've lobbied, what we've done, and what we can do. And so we'll be feeding back. So it's quite a challenging session for me because they don't hold back in their opinions, but I think it's really worthwhile. So that's just kind of really brief overview that we wanted to give about the work of the Violence and Vulnerability Partnership and the work that we do across Essex, but specifically how we have an impact in Maldon, and happy for any questions.
Members, so thank you very much for that report. Members, do you have any questions at all? Councillor Fittock.
I seem to remember a report that was produced some while back, and it seemed to me that, again, I'll go back to the difference between urban environments such as Maldon and Burnham and across the villages, and it didn't seem to me there was much participation from the smaller villages on this, which, whilst they're small at the moment, it looks like they're going to become a lot larger in a not too distant future. So I'm just wondering if you've got any sort of understanding of the differences between these types of areas, and obviously that's going to create much more problems, because to deal with somewhere like Maldon and Burnham is one thing, to deal with, you know, a couple of thousand houses built around the Dengie in addition to what we got is another matter altogether. I'm just wondering how any thoughts about how that's going to be dealt with in the future.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's really, it is obviously easier when you're working in urban areas. There's more provision for youth work, but actually, if you look what we're starting to do, so with our community grants round, where we're funding organisations, one of the key requirements for them is to feed into the listening report and also make sure that they're moving into the areas that are underreported. But I know through ECVIS, they're always looking for other partners. So if there's anybody in your local areas who works with young people, we would be happily take suggestions and go out and really approach them. So that'd be great for me.
Councillor Fittock.
I mean, one of the problems we've got is you've got villages that are relatively small in comparison to a town, and to get volunteers is quite difficult. So, I mean, would it be helpful if we were almost to sort of form alliances amongst a group of villages to try to do that in some way? And that being the case, is there any support to be given to do that? Because it's quite difficult to get volunteers. I mean, we tried to get across the whole of the Dengie people to volunteer for community speedwatch groups. And we got 2 volunteers across 18 villages, because that's just the way it is. There's a very big difference.
No, we would love that, and sometimes we look at different alternative ways. So I'm not from around in the Burnham, but I played rugby at Burnham and Crouch rugby team recently, and so looking at different sports teams is one of the things that we're looking to, and using them as anchor points. So you can use different organisations rather than just using youth opportunities that might be there, but we could look at other areas that link into an anchor communities. But if you've got any suggestions, I'll work with my colleagues within ECVIS. Obviously my details will be there, and if you send, and we would definitely happily work around alliances. We have very small amounts of funding to fund those little organisations to provide the evening. If they want to have an evening of listening for next year's report, then we'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. Yes, could I ask please that we have all your contact details shared between the members of this committee so that people can make that contact going forward, because I think that would be really important. Okay, members, do we have any other questions for Mr. Pearson? Councillor Hayward.
It wasn't really a question. I'm following on from Councillor Fittock actually about youth teams and things. A few of our villages, not many, do have youth clubs and things like that. I do. I run one. Again, it is the fact of lack of volunteers. We run it on 5 volunteers, but we have about 35 youngsters every single week now. So, you know, and obviously anything you can do to help them and to get the knowledge out to them is what we need. So there is little clubs and things like that which could be beneficial to you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, and thank you for the volunteering. We love to hear people volunteering for that. It makes such a difference in our communities. And so what we would do is that, I'm not sure if you've seen, there's the Essex Youth Map, which has been produced. I think I've probably got some business cards with me, which identifies other areas. It's basically a provision we've been putting together with the ECVIS to show all of youth provision across the whole of the county, and that will help identify if you're not aware of things in other areas. ECVIS are really good at pulling that together, but I'm pretty sure I'll have some cards I'll be able to leave as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mr. Pearson. Thank you. Okay, members, so are we all happy there? Has everybody asked everything they want to? Good, fantastic. Okay, so we move to item 9, which is any other items of business that the chairperson decides are urgent, and I'm sure you'll be glad to hear it just gone 9 o'clock that I have none. So we move to the closure of the meeting. Members, thank you for your contributions this evening, and also for our officers who've attended here. We're always very grateful for your attendance. I now draw the meeting to a close at 9:01 p.m. As the meeting is now closed, members are advised to leave promptly. Thank you.